Hey, good mornings, everybody. Daryl P. here, aka Artist in Recovery, and I really want to share some of my tips, some of my advice. I've got 19 years clean and sober. I was a full-blown junkie crackhead for 2 decades. I mean, every day, full-blown. And I've been clean and sober for 19 years. And the sad thing is, I got a pretty good idea that this video probably will not get a whole lot of views. But that being said, I still really want to talk about this. People always, I get a lot of questions. How did you do it? And there's no simple answer. First of all, you really have to want it. You have to hit a point where they say where your life is unmanageable, or you could say it's rock bottom, or you could say whatever. But you just got, with me, I got to a point, I was sitting in a car 19 years ago on October 23rd, 2006. And I had relapsed. Well, I was trying to get clean. And I had relapsed and smoked rock all day, $300 worth. I was down to my last $9 and change. I had gone through like $300. Like I said, I had been clean for about 3 months, and I just went off that one day. And it was a week before Halloween, and I was down to my last $9 and change, and I was sitting in my car. I couldn't get a hold of my usual guys, and I just tried this one last phone number that I had, and the guy said he was going to meet me for $9 worth. And at this point, it would just make me feel worse. It would get me high for like 5 minutes, if that, and I would crash even harder. So I'm taking my change, my last change after going through $300, and I'm calling a guy I don't even know, and he says he'll meet me. And this is back, there was no, I didn't have a cell phone at this point. It was 2006, and he didn't show up for a while. So I got out of my car, went up to the payphone, called him back. I'll be right there. Didn't come. Got out of my car, payphone. Calling back. About 3 hours, I'm sitting in that car. It's about 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's cold. I'm in Connecticut here, so this time of year, it's cold here. It was about 40, 45 degrees. I see families going into the stores to get their Halloween decorations, nice, happy families all bundled up and going back home. And I'm sitting in a cold car. And I've been sitting there for 3 hours with $9 and change. I crashed hard after spending $300 all day, relapsed, and I'm feeling terrible. And I'm waiting to give a stranger who I never met, I'm waiting to give this stranger my last $9 in freaking change, in dimes, nickels, and quarters, so that I could feel even worse, so that I could crash even harder. So I'd get a little high for 2 seconds, and I'd crash even harder. And I'm sitting in a car for 3 hours waiting to give this guy my last $9 and change. That right there, I asked myself, why? This is insanity. And it finally hit me. That was the moment. Okay, that being said, I wasn't going to talk about that initially. Once I got clean and sober, honestly, a methadone program worked for me. And after about 2 or 3 weeks in the program, I started to actually feel normal. Like I by normal, I mean, it was probably the first time in my life, I was 40 years old at this point, probably the first time in my life where I felt like I didn't need to change the way I feel. Like I didn't need to alter the way I felt. Like I felt good, not high, but I felt good. I felt like motivated. I felt sociable. I felt, not overly confident, but I felt good for the first time in my life. And it was like an epiphany. I was like, holy crap, I could do this. This methadone, medically assisted treatment, this might work for me. Okay, so about a week or two later, like I said, I'm feeling good. So I want to do. I'm feeling motivated. I want to do something. I need to restructure my life. I can't do the same things that I used to do, like go to the bar or just chase drugs and money all day. And I got the idea. I wanted to be. I felt, like I said, I felt sociable, and I wanted to get out in public. So I went for a walk. There's a dam. There's a lot of dams in the area, hold back water, parks, dams. And I went for a walk at this dam, just like down the dam and back up, like a half mile each way, about a mile walk, 15 minutes. And I enjoyed it. I just enjoyed it. It felt good getting out in the fresh air. I felt like I was coming alive again. And that became part of my routine. Now here's the thing. I started working out a little more. I started adding to that. I was way overweight. Once I got into recovery, I gained even more weight. I was overweight when I was using, about 250 pounds. I'm 6'3". And then once I got into recovery, I went up to about 280. My cholesterol was through the roof. So I started walking and exercising. Okay. And here's the thing, like I wanted to get out in public. Now I ended up losing about 90 pounds. I started to work out with weights, and the changes came along pretty quick. And I started to feel confident in myself. And I kind of wanted to get back out in public for people to see me. So I started walking around the town I live in. Like I said, I'd walk at the dam, and I'd walk up. It's not a highway. It's a 2-lane road that goes from one town to the other near the park. And I would walk a couple miles up this road where a lot of people travel. And the thing is, people got to see me and got to see that I was clean and sober. And the thing I didn't realize is I did this for a year, for 2 years, and it became a big part of my life. Then I started mountain biking too, and by mountain biking around town. And here's the good part of this. Like I felt like I became part of the community just by it was a good way for me to keep busy, to get back in shape, to take up my time in a useful, constructive manner. And not only that, to slowly jump back into socializing, because I don't know about you guys, but I have a little social anxiety, especially, getting clean and sober and getting back into reality. And walking around like that, I had a walking stick because I didn't know what to do with my hands when I first started. I didn't know how to swing my hands when I was walking, so I had a walking stick. And I would walk a couple miles up around town. And then, like I said, eventually I work out more, and I started mountain biking. And now the cool thing is, like in that town, that was 19 years ago, people got to know me. And I would be at the grocery store or the gas station, and people would come up to me and they'd say, "God bless you. You got so much energy. You're out there every day." It's like they're like, I wish I had the energy. I wish I had the motivation you have. And people, dozens, hundreds of times in the last 19 years, people have come up to me and started conversations. And it felt good. It felt good becoming part of the community again. And they got to know me. And they saw that I was a good guy, and it led to me getting an apartment. It led to me selling some of my artwork. It had a lot of positive impacts. And eventually, after COVID, I moved to the city here. Now, I live in a building. It's an over 55 building, and so this is a very large building. I love it here. There's an exercise room. There's a billiard room. All sorts of. It's kind of a gated community. There's gates to get in. It's kind of fenced in, and it's nice landscaping. And there's about 150 apartments. So there's a lot of people here. And this is the reason I'm talking about this today, because I just went to do my laundry down the hall in the laundry room. And there was a couple ladies in there. And I was just talking to them about if there was a spare washing machine. It's raining outside, so we're just chatting. And they say, they say to me, "You can't ride your bike today." And I was like, "No," I said, "It's a good day for me to, do some work around the apartment and do my laundry." But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I didn't recognize these ladies because, like I said, it's a very big, even though I've been here 4 years, there's some people I don't even recognize now. But they knew me, and they see me out there every day, riding my bike. And I'd have to say, some people might think I'm crazy or I overdo it, or some people, a very small minority, might get aggravated just by bicycles. There's always going to be some people that don't like whatever you do, but the majority of people have positive things to say to me, and I become today I realize I'm a very, I wouldn't say prominent, but I'm a very visible person in this building, and part of me part of me makes me a little nervous, because like I said, I have a little social anxiety, but being in recovery, it feels good. It feels like I'm part of, not only am I part of the town, the city, we're walking around town every day, but I'm part of this little apartment, this community, and people, almost everybody in this building recognizes me from being outside and walking and constantly seeing me out there riding my bike, and it feels good. And part of it, there's some aspect of it that keeps me clean, because I know if I were to relapse or anything, if I was to start living wrong, people would notice right away. People would notice that I'm not out there, and in that respect, it's a positive influence in my life that keeps me from relapsing. It's a very positive thing. You don't want to let people down. People have I want to say, a good opinion. They see me out there, most of them say, oh, you got so much energy, and it feels good, and not only that, a lot of times I go through construction sites, and there's always the police, and I built a good rapport with the police, and that's unusual because for 2 decades I was terrified of the police. I was committing felonies literally every single day to have to get what I had to get and do what I had to do. So I was terrified of the police. Was not a fan of the police. And now there's actually a policeman that lives in this building, and he's a good guy, and we get along great, and it feels good. It feels so good. Just being part of the community again. I'm going to leave you guys with this one thing that just came to my mind. Back when I was using, about 25 years ago, like I said, I feel a part of the community again. This is what it was like about 25 years ago. I remember I was sick because I couldn't get my fix that day. And I was looking out the window, a day just like today, a rainy day. And I lived in the other town. And there was a Cumberland Farms gas station next door. And I'm looking at the people going to work, gassing their cars up on both sides of the pump, dressed in work clothes or dressed in a suit or nurses' outfits and nurses' uniforms. And I remember I was looking at these people, and I felt so distant. Like I looked at them and I wondered how they could do that. How could you go to work? How could you gas your car? How I couldn't remember what it was like to be human. It felt like I was looking at a movie. I was looking at these people gassing up and going to work, and I felt so abstract, so pulled away from them. Like I couldn't even remember what it was like to be that, to be like that, to be living a normal life. And it was such a scary feeling. And that same day, I remember I woke up and I didn't know what time it was. Like I didn't have I just had a clock with the hands on it. And I think it said like 6 o'clock, and it was in the summertime. And I didn't know if it was 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. And that was just a terrifying feeling. I had no idea if it was 6 at night or 6 in the morning, if people were going to work or if they were coming home from work. There was a lot of trees around. I couldn't really make out from, the sun, east and west and all that stuff. And that's where I used to be. I felt like I wasn't even part of humanity. I was so deep into addiction. And that's why now it feels so good being part of the community again. So when people ask me, how did you do this? What's some tips? When you first get in recovery, you have to take up your time. You have to rebuild yourself from the ground up. physically, mentally, emotionally, everything, spiritually. You have to rebuild yourself from the ground up, and you have to keep yourself not just busy, but motivated all day, doing constructive things and walking, and walking around town, getting out in public. That was a huge motivator, a huge plus in recovery. So I highly recommend you guys do that. Get back out into the community where people can see you. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, I ran into one of my old girlfriends from when I was in third grade who became my fiance. Unfortunately, she passed away from COVID 4 years ago. But there's a lot of positive aspects to getting out in the community and exercising, walking, jogging, bike riding, walking your dog, hiking. Those are very good ways to get back into the normalcy of recovery, of humanity. I hope this helped. All right. Recovery is possible. Have a good weekend.